Hello there. Welcome to Lunch with the Soul. My name is Melissa Wilson. I am in the Fox 26 newsroom in Houston, Texas, and so happy to welcome you here today. Wow, we have a real go-getter that you are about to meet. I feel like as we wrap up Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it's really important, ladies, to remember if you are over the age of 40, or if you have a family history, it would be even earlier, but by the age of 40, you need to be having those annual mammograms. Doctors really urge you to do that. And so does our next guest, because she skipped hers for a few years because of other medical things that she was going through. I'm going to let her get into that with you, but it's so important for us to just all band together and try to hold each other accountable, I think, to really make a difference in each other's lives. So let's welcome Tisa Alderete. Hello, Tisa. I'm so happy to
Hello.
see you again. Welcome. So happy to see you, and you looking beautiful as always. You have quite the testimony because you have been through really three imaginable things.
Yeah.
And we're going to get through those. So I want to first of all talk about what happened to you when well, first of all, let's just walk you through everybody. So you had cystic fibrosis, then you had a double lung transplant, and then breast cancer. It's
Yes.
insane. But let's just start with the beginning, because I want people to know what you've been through and then how you've been able to pull it all off. So you got cystic fibrosis diagnosis later in life than most people, didn't
I
you?
did. I did. I was 16. And usually you're an infant when you're diagnosed. So it was a bit shocking. I had always I displayed symptoms of it with a hacking cough all the time. I was pretty thin, just brutal coughs, pneumonia. And then finally, when I was taken to the doctor, they diagnosed me through a sweat test to have cystic fibrosis. And then I had to learn everything about that disease.
Oh, I bet.
So it was pretty shocking.
Well, it ended up really affecting your lungs, but there were a lot of problems along the way, including your pancreas, and that's very typical of this disease, isn't it?
Yes.
What was that? I mean, when I think about pancreatic pain, it sounds so incredibly painful. I'm sure it was very tough to be a teenager and going through that.
It was tough. It felt different. I felt different than everybody else. And
Hmm.
I really didn't tell anybody when I was a teenager what
Hmm.
was going on with me. I just went to school, and then I'd have to be hospitalized, for 2 weeks. Like, I think when I was 17, I was hospitalized 6 different times that year for pneumonia. And then they come in and they give you IV drugs to kill the infection, but you don't quite kill the infection. You just put it a little bit at bay so you can live. But they did all kinds of things. I had like a vest that would, like, it looks like a life preserver, and it would like vibrate and basically beat the mucus out. It was very phlegmy. And the pancreas was affected. I dealt with some pancreatitis and had to have a surgery on my pancreas. So that was really hard. That was really challenging. That was super, super painful.
And you were so young. How did you handle that? Obviously, you said you didn't even tell a lot of people what you were going through, so you wouldn't have had that full support of your entire school
Right,
or anything like that.
right.
How
Well,
did you
honestly,
deal with that?
honestly, I always kind of felt like they misdiagnosed me.
Yeah.
For years, I felt like that. I felt like somebody's going to come back and say, "Oh, you don't have cystic fibrosis. You have something else. Here's a pill. Take it." For some reason in my mind, I thought that would happen, but it never happened. And I got used to the idea. And the thing about being hospitalized so much, you make a lot of friends in the hospital. I have a ton of friends in the hospital. And I would do things outside of the hospital with like the nurses and the respiratory therapists.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of like my home away from home. And I just made it comfortable. I'd bring my own clothes. I would leave the hospital. In between my intravenous IV meds, I would
Hmm.
leave the hospital and like go to the mall and come back when it was time to get. I know I shouldn't be saying this, but when it was time to get the antibiotics, it's. I think with cystic fibrosis, it's a unique kind of disease, and we all have similarities with cystic fibrosis. We're all kind of rebellious. From everybody, we call it CF for short. For every CF friend I've had, we've all been rebellious when it comes to the hospital because we're in so much and we miss out on so many things. So we just try to live for the moment
Hmm.
and try to be normal to not be normal.
Mhm.
If it's the case,
Mhm.
but you have friends, and I'd have a lot of friends that were hospitalized the same time as I was, and it'd be like a reunion.
Mhm. Oh,
Make a bad situation out of a good situation.
well, it was good that you had that support
Yeah.
system at least, right? What a difference that makes. Eventually, your lungs started failing. Can you walk us through that time in your life? Because you had to be put on a transplant list. I know that had to be so difficult to know that you had to find a match or you wouldn't survive.
Yes.
And you were in your late 30s by then?
I was when I got on the transplant list, I was 36. So when I gradually, you gradually get up to that point. And, I would talk about going to the hospital and then leaving the hospital. I couldn't do that because I didn't have the oxygen in my lungs, even with oxygen, to do that. Every little thing I did would feel like I just ran a marathon. It's like breathing through a straw with your nose clamped shut and sandbags on your chest. And eventually I started coughing up like all this blood that really diminished my lung capacity. And so I was listed in 2008 for a double lung transplant. And I was ready. I was so ready for it. I was glad to be on that list. I wasn't scared of the transplant itself. The scariest part about the transplant is how you live up until the transplant.
Yeah.
It was you get anxiety because you can't breathe. I
Mhm.
would fracture ribs because of the force of my cough. I'd cough all day long.
Mhm.
I'd fracture ribs. The only good thing about it was I had a nice six-pack of abs from all the coughing, but that was the only positive thing about that.
Oh
And a
my.
handicap partner. That's it. But
Well,
then,
you
I was
after
living.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. After being on that list for 2 years,
Yeah.
the match came. What was that moment like? Because that was back in the day. Were you wearing a pager back then? Were you?
Just your cell phones. Just your
Oh,
it's
it was a phone then. Okay. So what was that like when you answered that
Well,
phone?
that day it was crazy because I did not want to leave the house because it was a struggle just to get up and go to the bathroom.
Hmm.
So I left the house with my friend, and we were like looking at the boats, and it was just a real struggle to get back in the car. And I remember saying, I appreciate what you're doing, getting me out of the house, but I'm ready for my new life to start. And at 4:35 that day, I got a phone call saying that they had lungs for me. And I was just so excited. I wasn't scared because I was so done with the way I was living.
Hmm.
I was so done. And, the surgery itself, it was about 8 hours.
Wow.
And I woke up the next day. Yeah, that I was on the vent, and I woke up like within 24 hours, and they extubated me. And that's just a yearly thing. The blood work you see right now,
Hmm.
they do that every year. And these are all the meds that keep me going. They keep me, alive. So I have to take, all those pills, and they do cause side effects too. I'm type 1 diabetic now. I, have to shoot insulin when I eat. But hey, I'm breathing, and I feel like I won the lotto. I
It's
really do.
incredible for you to have that attitude that you've been through. And this is
Yes.
quite a dramatic. This is before and after the
Yes,
transplant.
that was the evening. I was waiting for my lungs, and then on the right side, that was like maybe 2, 3 years later, and I was on my way to volunteer because I do a lot of volunteer work, or
Wow.
I did when I was in San Diego.
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah, here you are.
well,
This-
donate
this-
life. I speak to I would speak to high school students and also college. I'd go into the college, and I would give the facts about organ donation, and then I would tell them my story. And a lot of people didn't believe that I was the one that had the transplant. I would
I
say,
bet.
yeah, it's crazy. And then that's the American Lung Association. I climbed that tower for 5 years in a row after my transplant until they stopped the event. And I spoke for them. I was a public speaker for the American Lung Association too. So I'm just trying to give back. Yes, that's part of the stair climb I did. It's
What's incredible is, and I can see why people would be surprised because we look at you, and it's like there's no way you went through that. There's no way this young woman had a lung transplant. It's just you're so vibrant.
when you're facing death, and you get a new lease on life, there's no other way to be. I mean, for me, and I keep that positive energy, and I like to spread it around, sprinkle it around a little.
Well, something big was happening in your life about that time. I'm going to just cut to the chase. Well, here we go. This person in your life, he
That
pulled
was
this
that.
during the hospital stay. So tell me how this
Yes.
happened.
Okay, so it's really cute how I met my husband. I met him on the internet on a Craigslist ad to babysit his cats. So so then he asked me out, and then we dated, we moved in together, and then we got married in 2018 after we had moved to Michigan. And it was amazing. He didn't see me sick. He didn't look at me like I was sick or anything, and it was great. He's very supportive, and anytime I need anything, he goes to the store. He's there for every surgical procedure. It's been amazing. He's a good man.
Well, and I was so happy to get to interview him earlier and just to
Yes,
share how much you mean to him. And,
yes.
he said he can't believe all that you do.
Sorry,
And
my dogs.
it's okay. We got to love those dogs.
I'm a
That,
mom of dogs.
uh, that he how strong you've been through all of this. And he's just so amazed by you. And I know that makes you sound, it just has to sound so good to your ears. Let's talk about what was going on. Okay, so things are going good.
Things are going
You've gotten
great.
your transplant, and then the unthinkable happened.
And then the unthinkable happened. So we moved to Texas in 2022.
And I'm
And
sure at
last
that point, you're just thinking still about lung
I'm just like
transplant.
life.
Like you're not thinking about any other health concerns because you've had so many. Surely nothing else would
Well,
happen.
I did. I have been, I have been in the hospital. We call them for tune-ups, because I would
Mhm.
get pneumonia occasionally. Still, even though you receive a transplant, you will have other issues, and I can deal with other issues as long as I can breathe. So, in 2023, in the summertime, I was like feeling my breast, and I noticed a big lump. And it had been 3 years since I had my mammogram. So I went to my doctor, and he ordered a mammogram with an ultrasound. And they eventually did a biopsy because it was really suspicious. And that biopsy came back to show triple negative cancer, breast cancer. And it rocked my world because cancer was not on my radar. I know with transplant, you're susceptible to more like other cancers because your immune system is suppressed. So I assumed it would be skin cancer, but breast cancer, it was pretty shocking. And so that's when I was sent to Memorial Hermann. They took great care of me. Dr. Burt was my surgeon.
Mhm.
She set me up. In fact, I was supposed to see somebody at the end of the month, an oncologist, and she said, you can't wait that long. And she set me up with her oncologist, and I saw them that Monday. And let me tell you, I mean, game changer. And after I knew we had a plan, I was good with it. I was good with the cancer. It was relatively, I mean, it was small enough. It didn't spread to the any organs or anything. So I was really happy about that. So I said, well, I've got to tackle this. And I did 12 rounds of chemo. And I mean, I got sick on the second round. I had to be hospitalized for a week. I missed chemo for that week because, like with chemo, it also suppresses your immune system. So
Mhm.
I was sick, and I had to be hospitalized for a week, but I got better. I was able to finish out my course, and then I had the double mastectomy. So yeah, that's
And
really
that's such a big surgery to go through, isn't it?
yes. Like I had the option of just doing the one breast, but I talked to the surgeon, and with triple negative, there's a high probability of it coming back. Also, 10 to 15% of women, get this. So there's not a lot of options. You have your chemotherapy if you have to do radiation, and surgery. That's all you get. And that's all I got. And my doctors had to be really careful. They, my oncologist had to talk to my transplant doctors and they talked to their oncologists. They had to find a, a cocktail of chemo that was suited for me, that it wouldn't put me into rejection, but it was just enough to shrink the cancer cells. So
what a blessing that doctors are able to figure that out and actually custom basically fit it to your body, right? I got to talk to your doctor from Memorial Hermann in
love Dr.
Kansas.
Love her.
And she's just, I mean, just seems so caring and loving. And, you know, you're not a number, I could tell. It was so touching to see how much she cares about you. And one thing that she told me about you, and she says, I'm trying to think of the quote. It was something like, I would do anything if I could bottle up yours, being you, your positive energy and your positive attitude and all this, because she feels like that's why you have thrived. And she said, you know, they could never imagine, they didn't know how you were going to do with this, but she said you've been sailing through it all, still taking oral chemotherapy, and you've done so well. And she does feel like your attitude made a world of difference. How do you do that? How do you keep that positive attitude year after year, decade after decade for you?
Yeah, you know, I find that if I get into like a negative like thought process in my head, that it doesn't work for my body. It really doesn't. So like sometimes I have to fake it till I make it, but it really helps. Like I would move around. I wasn't going to sit still on the couch when I felt bad. I would actually move, and it does something to your brain. And like when I had the mastectomy, I was like doing laundry the next day. You know, I was moving. I wasn't going to just sit still, because you heal faster too. And, you know, I do a lot of things. I drink a ton of water. You know, I try to, you know, eat healthy on occasions. Yeah, but you know, I really try to be good to my body, but having a positive attitude is everything. It is everything, because you can defeat yourself. And I think if you have those negative thoughts, you know, you could eventually die. You know, you can put all this negative energy in your head and feed off of it and feel sick. And I wasn't about to do that. No way.
Good for you. And I'm so thankful you're able to figure that out and then share that with people who realize they might be in that same boat. I see here with your fur babies, they make such a big difference. This is back when you were so sick.
That was when I was waiting. That was my dog Amber, and
they make such a difference. And you know what I love now is you told me that nature is your thing. So let's talk about what you do on your walks, and I'm going to say who you feed, not what. Tell me what's in a nearby pond, I believe.
So we have like a little lake in back of our house, and I cut up like an apple every day for the turtles, and I toss it to the turtles inside, you know, the water that are swimming. And then there's also these ducks, and I did research because I know bread's not good for ducks. So I did research and ordered a giant bag of duck food, and I feed them every day. So they expect it. They're waiting for me at a certain time of day.
And I love that. And
it brings me joy. I do things,
doesn't it? They love it, but it helps you too.
It does. Little things like that. Get out, you know, if your thing is walking, yes. If you like to bird watch, do that. You know, I like to work out too. That helps a lot too. And that really helps me a lot, is working out. It really does something to your body.
Oh, it does. It makes such a difference. It does. Yes. For somebody who might be going through a really tough time right now, whether it's their own medical drama or something else, or maybe it's a loved one. We know that cancer, that something like cystic fibrosis affects the whole family, right? Yes. What is your best advice in order to flip that frame of mind into how you're able to do so constantly?
You know, you have to live in the moment. You know, you can't think of, I try not to think of the future. And, you know, my mom, she did die of, like, I think it was lung cancer. She died of lung cancer, and it was horrible to watch. But, you know, I didn't sit in that mess. It's good to have a great support system. Like I have a best friend that I talk to every day. We Skype every single day. But with the people that are now dealing with this, it's I know it's going to be hard, but just try to think positive. Try to get through the treatments. Try to do things that bring you joy
Mhm.
instead of sitting in the depression, because there will be a good outcome if you really like focus and you try really hard, and I look at this like, say, like in the beginning, I didn't know. I knew that I would get through it. I knew that. But I thought, well, if it did spread before, I had the MRI, if it did spread, I'll deal with it. But I'm
Mhm.
not going to sit on my couch and cry. I'm going to live life to the fullest, because that's why I got these lungs, and here's something kind of odd. So for a couple of years, I was complaining about, growing my hair out to my natural color like it is right now,
Mhm.
or should I keep dyeing it? And then I was also talking to my friends about, breast augmentation. I had had breast augmentation years ago, and, they need an uplift. And I kept talking about, I really need to do this. And then with the cancer diagnosis, it did it all for me. And that was like a positive for me. My hair grew out. I'm getting, breast, surgery to fix all that. So, I thought that was a kind of a positive thing out of that.
That's the kind of attitude we all need, right? And I guess as we wrap up here today, take home messages, don't skip the mammograms no matter what you're going through in
No,
life.
3 years, 3 years. Don't skip your mammogram. I was so silly. I just was living life, having fun, but you
Mhm.
can't skip those mammograms, ladies. Please.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your
Yes.
very personal story in order to try to help somebody else. And you're such a positive force, and we certainly appreciate you
Oh,
taking time out of your schedule to talk to us on Lunch for the Soul. Thank you for that.
thank you so much.
All right, Tisa, it's an honor to meet you. You
Bye.
hang in there. Only good health from you from
Only
now.
the yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Thanks again. And I want to remind you all, if you joined us late today, or maybe you want to watch this a little bit later on in its entirety, you can always find us on Fox 26's YouTube or on our webpage. It's fox26houston.com. And another easy way is our Fox Local app, either for your cell phone or your smart TV. You look there, you will find it. And I hope to see you back here next week, same time, always Wednesdays and Saturdays at 1 o'clock. Have a beautiful day, everybody. And thanks again for being here. If you want to reach out to me, maybe you want to be featured here on Lunch for the Soul, I hope you'll find me, melissa.wilson@fox.com, the easiest way to find me. Have a beautiful day.